So we're moving on to the next presentation of the day. We're going to be joined by Charlie Walters. Charlie is Head of Technology at HSBC, and Charlie is going to be looking at barriers on executing enterprise digital transformation. So if we can put our hands together and welcome Charlie. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Really great to be here and talking to you all today. I am going to be talking to you about overcoming barriers in enterprise digital transformation. Actually, what I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about hints and tips that I kind of have as a toolkit for myself as I walk into new teams. And I've done that a little bit in the last couple of months. So a little bit about me first. I have been working in IT for about 25 years. And I put all the logos of the places I've worked. So not loads of companies, but a fair few in financial services. I've worked for a virtual reality startup, mainly in insurance, and then a little bit in banking as well. I have one of my dogs on the screen. The dogs are very important to me. It keeps me sane. And yeah, I like to have a bit of hobbies alongside a fairly intense job. I think you can just about see it. So kindness is powerful is something that I try and keep in my mind quite a lot. I did learn it on a dog training course, which many people don't like. Many people don't like associating dog training with people. But actually positive reinforcement and the way we kind of encourage and engage people, again, is really important to me. I often avoid talking about kind of people stuff. I like to be technical because I've worked in IT and I'm a female and I must sound more technical. But actually, I'm trying to embrace this today, and that actually I will talk quite a lot about people and what I do and what I bring. I joined HSBC about 4 months ago. I came into a very technical team. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to bring? They're really technical. They're hardcore platform engineers. They're building stuff in AWS, Kubernetes, lots of jazzy terminology, which I will try and avoid all the way through. But I do know quite a lot around IT. I started doubting myself, and I'm like, no, I'm actually quite good at this. So when I put the presentation together, I had to remove quite a lot of stuff. No disrespect, but for a general audience, it was too much. When I joined that team in HSBC, I realized that actually what I can bring is the transformation mindset. They were doing a lot of, we build it and they will come. And it was like really cool tech stuff that no one was using. It wasn't adopted because the programs weren't bringing together the portfolio of work to take that work and push it forward. And so what I'm bringing and what I'll talk to you about today is very much around actually bringing that cultural environment that, again, a few tips. It's not a framework. It's not a whole series of things. Love Mark's presentation on the sequence of steps. Brilliant. You're going to get a bit more chaos and scattergun from me. It's more my style. Yeah, I think you probably got the gist that my focus is on continuous improvement, focus on people, and that's what you're going to hear about. Okay, so this was more to make sure I'm on track and telling you the right kind of stuff. So cultural aspects, removing barriers to execution, and thinking about how you actually then start tackling the barriers that do exist, because they exist all over the place. So that's my aim for this next 20 minutes. When I started preparing for this, I wanted to step back and remind myself, what do we mean by digital? Digital's been a buzzword for almost decades. So reminding myself that it's a customer-first culture. It's making sure we have instant feedback loops. It's that anytime, anywhere availability of the services or the processes that you're providing. Automate everything, probably. And really making sure we're driving change, having a much more efficient way of working. Improving regularly would be my stance on digital. I nixed that. Wasn't my words. So I want to then bring that to what does it mean to kind of me and my world in HSBC. This is my attempt at a simple example from a banking point of view. So if we think about banking 10, 15 years ago, we had in-person, we'd go to our banks in person in the high street, 9 to 5 or 9 to 4 maybe, where you could then handle your check payments or moving money around or talking to your bank manager. These days, I definitely do all my finances on my phone, much to my husband's distress because it's not secure. But we very much believe online, anytime, anywhere. That's what we're expecting as customers. We can handle processing money, paying people, whatever, all the time. So the technical infrastructure becomes very much the backbone. Whereas we'd, again, 10, 15 years ago, expect payments to be made in 60 days' time, whether that be payroll, whether that be stakeholders, whether it's people that you're paying through your account. Now it's at least within 2 hours, if not quicker. So what does that mean to the delivery teams that sit behind? We're thinking then more, I didn't want to describe what delivery looked like 10, 15 years ago. Maybe it was more a project environment where you're doing a more waterfall style of work, whereas now many big orgs using agile and more incremental delivery. So that's sort of where the difference lies. So my world now is very much continual improvement, as I said, incremental delivery, trying to make sure you're delivering value out the door more quickly, doing things as automated as possible. The world isn't always that rosy. Sometimes there's manual steps, sometimes there's things that could be much more efficient. So lots of continuous improvement that can happen. So my focus here is thinking about digital in the world around us, but also within the teams that I'm kind of leading, they're actually becoming more automated, having to become more digital in their mindset as well. Everything is much faster paced, both in the customer world and in the delivery world. So again, that's where we're going to next. So I'm going to talk a little bit about culture. It's not the whole shebang of culture. It's going to be some things that when I walk into a new team, I have in my mind and tend to what I like to think of as seeding in messages of direction that I want them to take on board, particularly if they've got a different culture from what I'm hoping for. I want people to feel engaged. I want them to feel like they can contribute. I want them to be focused on the things that they need to do. And I want them to be happy, because happy people equals more productive people. Okay, so the first topic I want to touch on is about building trust in a safe environment. Now, I'm really twitchy about the phrase psychological safety. It's something that, things like imposter syndrome and psychological safety and lots of terminology that tends to have a whole load of things attached to it, and it becomes a bit, I don't know, for me it's awkward. But when I was putting these slides together, I was really struggling to find the kind of package of something that captures the main messages that I had, and actually psychological safety does cover a lot of it. If you want to read a bit more, on a few of the slides I've put some references. So if you get them, you can see, so you can dig in a little bit more about psychological safety. But the messages I had here are around, when I walk into a team, I want people to speak up. So I'm going to start bottom left corner, the questioning. And I've sat, particularly during COVID, again, joined a couple of new teams in COVID, people are like videos off, not asking any questions, not saying anything. And pretty quickly, even in a slightly bullish way, people would know that I'm looking for feedback. If I'm saying something, I at least want some acknowledgement that someone understood. I want some acknowledgement that they're taking it on board. And again, I'm sometimes talking a small scale, but if you want to transform people, you have to get them on board. So a simple tip I've used and encourage some of my leads to use is, what questions do you have? It's a really simple way of having an open question that encourages people to go, well, what are you thinking about? What's your thoughts? So I will ask that, and I will encourage people to at least say, have you heard, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Even if we don't dig into the debate, I want them to give me some feedback on what they're thinking, because then I can understand, are we polar opposites? Are we aligned? Can we go on this journey together? Again, in small scale things, but also big things too. I'm going to then go up to the learner safety. So for me, experimenting, trying stuff out is super important. I know most of you, if you've been in the transformation world, might have seen the marshmallow experiment where you've got spaghetti sticks and marshmallows. And a quick show of hands, who's heard of that one? Oh, some people haven't. Okay, good mix. So the idea is you get a whole load of spaghetti sticks, spaghetti, I don't know why I call them spaghetti sticks, and some marshmallows, and you try and build the tallest possible tower with a little bit of tape as well. Actually, little kids tend to be the best at it because they just try, they give it a go, they actually try and put stuff together and make it work. So the idea is that let people try experimenting. Again, the lady from Secret Escapes, I forgot your name, mentioned about failing fast. Clearly don't want to encourage failing all the time, but definitely having that mindset of if you make a mistake, if it goes wrong, try it, let's see. Again, really important. Next comment, again, there's a lot more to collaboration safety than just interaction, but getting people talking, creating a space where people can have the conversations and constructively communicate, even disagree, that sort of safe environment where you can bring people's opinions is incredibly helpful. And then the bottom corner, the inclusion safety, again, lots of things. The one I want to call out is around just who is included. I did some great training, I'm not sure I can mention it, but there's a company called Equity Sequence or Tidal Equity. Great training that I went on as part of my previous company. And they literally got you to think about who's involved in the design, who's your target audience, who are you thinking about including, who at every stage of the process, who's involved, and who are you actually excluding. So making sure the right people are in the room to think about the audience you're trying to pass it to. So inclusion is incredibly important to make sure you're designing the right thing and creating an environment that has a sense of belonging. If people feel like they're belonging, they're more likely to feel safe, and then they're more likely to open up, and then you're more likely to have a successful outcome. So that's building trust. Another hot topic that I tend to bang on about when I waltz into a new team is giving context. So I've built lots of training on this in the past. The recommended watch is a YouTube video called Greatness. It's one of those doodle type videos, quite short. And it's the David Marquette. So again, if you've heard of the Turn the Submarine Around, again, it's definitely in lots of agile training. It talks about making sure you're giving the team a clear focus, clear intent. If they know the direction they're traveling in, whether it's from a roadmap or a vision statement, they can then go, okay, I get where you want me to go. I can go away and I can make choices that align to that direction. So if I'm walking into a new team or working on a new program and there is no vision, there's no clear roadmap, there's not a single page that kind of shows where we're going, big picture style, then I'll push to try and make sure that there is a single view. I often kind of go in and there's lots of confluence pages and then people are like, yeah, we've got a roadmap, it's over here. It's like, well, where's the architecture bit of that? Where's the product bit of it? Where's the shared understanding of what we're doing? So that's what I mean by the context. What are we doing? What direction are we traveling in? My next kind of nag is making sure that there's just enough process to align effort. So my note was, this page was going to be blank. There are lots of different frameworks that I find useful, whether it be, I'm going to say Prince2 or Scaled Agile Process or a maturity assessment or ITIL or whatever it could be. There's lots in different industries, different worlds that give you like a framework and a shared language, if you like, that people can understand. But go find the one that suits you best, that sequence of steps that means you can step through it. But I started my career in a process team where I was saying, here is the handbook. Go use this handbook and follow every step and you will be safe because you will get it done. But people's brains disengage. And in more recent years, in the last decade or so, having a much more agile mindset where you have just enough process and then you let the teams get on with it. So you kind of remove some of the red tape, you remove some of the challenges, and the team can get on. So process is needed, of course, but don't overburden the team with it. Don't make it a barrier. Okay, next tip. I love intrinsic motivation and understanding it. Again, another great little doodle video that I've nicked a couple of graphics from. It's the Dan Pink. So again, hopefully some of you have seen Dan Pink stuff. I try not to ram any of this down people's throats, but it's often this is how I think, guys. Watch these couple of videos. This is how we're trying to build a team. Really understand people need autonomy. They need some sort of control over their world. Now, that may mean being much more clear about who's accountable, who's responsible in either your program or your team, whatever it might be. Definitely the team I've just walked into, no one really knows what they're supposed to be doing. There's people in roles that aren't necessarily most skilled for those roles. There's overlap, there's confusion. And if we just do a quick RACI assessment, people would then maybe understand, oh, I'm supposed to be doing that, not that. Okay, oh, that's their job. Okay, and now I'm going to get some support to have the skills to do the thing I'm supposed to be doing. and it makes things much, much more clear when everyone understands expectations on them. Mastery, explaining it simply, we often pick up, I don't know, a musical instrument, a hobby, something that enables us to learn. The thing you do for free that's kind of fun and you're finding learning. If we can bring that to the world of work and create an environment where people can learn and grow, again, it makes it a much more powerful place to be. And then purpose. I know I care about making a difference and making people happier in their work, and therefore I really do believe that means they'll be more successful. Some people need to work for charities or other organisations. It's that sense of the thing that drives you, the thing that makes you want to be doing what you're doing. So that's intrinsic motivation, and again, a top topic that I like to share with people. So then my kind of handful of cultural type tips, I tend to bring those to any new team. There's probably other things as well. But I want to talk next a little bit about those barriers that you see as you join a new team or, say, a big new program. And it's to do with friction points. So the idea is get rid of those barriers, those friction points. Let's make sure that people can continuously improve, get those things out of the way, and get on with doing a good job. I was sort of inspired by this view I saw. It was a YouTube video of one of the Gartner conferences. And it really resonated for me around the barriers or the friction points for execution. So this was something I then took into my old role and drove some improvement using this as the one-page vision, if you like. What are we trying to do? We're trying to make people want to stay in the organisation. So just to summarise the data, we're talking 57% of people want to stay in an organisation if there's no challenges, no friction points. And as the number of friction points increase, so as we get to 9+, the drop in intent to stay is a drop of 35% down to 22% intent to stay. Of course, people may stay, but they just probably aren't very happy about staying. So the idea here is to encourage the desire to stay, be involved, be engaged. We all know those engagement indexes are important. A lot of big corporates will drive to increase engagement in staff. So we want to remove those barriers. And what I did is use this then to think about, well, okay, what are our friction points? Where are those barriers to execution? In this example, it was engineering execution. It was getting by engineering I mean software delivery. So we're building kind of platforms that underpin the payment services systems in this example. So whether it's like a Pareto analysis or a heat map, something that enables you to drill it in and actually think about, well, what are the top things? Mark was showing earlier that whole kind of niche and high. Where are you going to get the biggest impact by making improvement? I like to remind people it's really, really important to prioritise. You can't do everything. You have to choose. If you try and do everything, you'll just be context switching between everything. So let's pick the top improvement we want to make, whatever it might be, and drive that forward. And maybe if there's a series of improvements that make sense, put it on some sort of maturity view or some sort of view that shows we're starting here, we're going here, but we're doing this first. So try and simplify it so we, again, limit WIP. These are words that people will hear coming out of my mouth all the time. Let's just rationalise what we're doing. If someone asks you to do something, what's going to give? So root cause analysis really is what I'm talking about here, and then driving a clear improvement plan. Lots of words, so that was more for me. It's quite a detailed example, but at the surface, let's think we've identified a barrier. In this instance, the software engineers were finding that they were tripping over lots of delays, whether it be downtime of systems. The environment we were in was my engineering team, so I had 15 Scrum teams, all driving to build part of a payment platform. They were dependent on central teams that had a responsibility for putting controls in place. We need to make sure in a banking environment or any environment that the code going into production is secure, is not going to break stuff. So the barrier was the security stuff was delaying things. If you didn't get your code through into production quickly enough, security would go, your libraries have been kicking around too long, we're going to delete them for you. So people would have to start again, or they'd have to do rework, or they'd have to fix vulnerabilities before they could move stuff forward. So it felt like you're putting handcuffs on someone to try and get work done, but it was necessary. So making sure people understood why those constraints were in place was important, the reasons that we had it, but also actually trying to resolve the things that didn't need to be in place as problems. So we started with a downtime tracker. Now, when you sit and ask engineers to write down or kind of log when they were having downtime, well, that's just frustrating. It's like, oh, well, no one's going to do anything with it. You're going to just make me log it. And are they logging accurately? And is it reflective of what we need to improve? So you then have to demonstrate you are using that data and it is really valuable and we are really grateful, and not do that beat you with stick because you haven't filled in the logger. So it was quite an important process that we went to make sure we understood the burden, we made sure people knew why some of the challenges were in place, and then demonstrated as a leadership team that we were regularly looking at the data and we were driving actions from that data and showing the outcome actions. So many orgs kind of talk about, we will respond to the engagement survey with action, we've got this best intention, but never demonstrate the actual benefit that you've achieved, the change that you've actually made. So in this circumstance, we did demonstrate the benefit of the team. We did make a difference and improve the downtime, and made sure that the engineers were thanked for the effort they were putting in as extra to enable us to record that data. So the tips here was we kind of swarmed it. It was, rather than having one team working on this issue, we pushed it across the department. We, as a group of leaders, cared about it across the department. So we were all focused on that for a while, and not like, well, Mr. A over here was focusing on this thing and B over here was focusing on something else. It was a team effort, a team passion, and made a difference. So I've fairly rapidly covered a lot of different topics. I've talked about the cultural aspects that I particularly care about, the psychological safety piece, giving clear context and direction, the just enough process, and the importance of understanding the motivation of people. I've also fairly rapidly touched on the concept of that kind of root cause analysis, making sure you're really thinking about those barriers, the challenges that teams have, and how you can kind of go about overcoming them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Do we have any questions? Any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Me again. You talked earlier about psychological safety and some of the buzzwords that kind of throw around about it, and you were kind of sort of saying, not rejecting the idea, but kind of going, let's not worry about that too much. And kind of, I think in today's age, people are like, oh no, let's follow the rules and conform. How did people react, or how receptive are people to that slightly different way of thinking, or being okay to kind of not follow the crowd slightly, I guess?
Say that again, the last bit.
So you were saying earlier about psychological safety, there's lots
Yeah.
of buzzwords, and not that you reject that, but you were kind of saying, let's not get too worried about that, let's focus on what's important to us. How do people react to that?
It's about, so my concern was that the phrase psychological safety feels like a strapline. So when you go to kind of events, I've been to a lot of women in tech events, and it's like, well, today's topic is imposter syndrome, and today's topic is psychological safety, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, I'm women in tech, and I just want to come and talk about tech. So it's that kind of stance, is I don't want to keep moaning about being female and things being a bit difficult. That's not helpful. But I worked in a very psychologically safe place, and let's imagine I'm in a scenario where I'm not. And therefore, it becomes very relevant that, okay, well, why is it not feeling like a safe place? Why are people not speaking up? Why is everyone under pressure? Why are people stressed unnecessarily? Why is there, like, got to do a load of stuff and it can't sift it? And it's actually because someone hasn't stopped and thought about how do we make it safe for people to be successful. So the scenario would be, I'm in a scenario where things could be less challenging if we're a little bit more realistic about the human side of what we're trying to do. And I think if that was thought about, then it could be done differently. So psychologically, safety then becomes important, but people would be like quite dismissive of terminology, so I'm quite wary of it. It's like, oh God, they're just talking about that whole fad of psychological safety. So that's why I try and avoid it.